on Twitter earlier today, and someone had posted a thread. We hired a private chef to cook for our family. It was an amazing decision. But before you cancel me, let me tell you my story and share what we learned. So then he goes through, like everyone else on Twitter. There's a long thread about this, that, and the other thing. He talks about like why he did it, and like what's the financials, like how's the timing breakout, things like that. It actually isn't very different than like us using a meal prep service, right? So you and me, we've probably heard of so many of them, and they all have their own little like quirks. I mean, I've been on Factor for probably 2 months now. You're doing Factor, but there's Blue Apron, and there's Freshly, and there's so many of them. And I've actually kind of looked at the private chef piece before, mostly because like it would be nice to like. So for those that don't know, so Factor in particular is a meal delivery service that you basically choose a number of meals that you want per week. They'll ship it to you at the beginning of the week. And basically it's almost like they did the meal prepping for you. So in the same way that you would cook 5 or 6 meals, throw them in little containers, throw them in your fridge, and then heat them up and eat them. Same exact thing. They just do all of the cooking for you. So this isn't like, is it Freshly that sends you the ingredients and you have to cook it yourself?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's not that, right? Like you don't have to do any of the cooking. Literally the prep time is 2 minutes and 30 seconds in the microwave, and that's it. And so I've actually looked at the other side up here in Seattle before of like, what if we got a private chef? How does that actually compare? And this guy did a really good job in this tweet breaking it down. So one area in the financial part of his tweets, he talks about, okay, for $150 for food, $250 for 6 hours of labor. So all in for that week is $400. He's able to get 4 complete dinners for 4 people, so 2 adults and 2 children, 16 snacks and breakfast meals. And then there's enough leftovers from like the other core meals where they can piece together another 10 lunches or meals. So breaking everything down, and he puts a little disclaimer. This is in San Antonio, Texas. Yep. And so all the meals, breakfast, snacks, dinners comes out to around $10 a meal. If he was to exclude the breakfast, it's $15 a meal. Let me like, for a point of like comparison here, compare how much I've been paying for Factor. Okay. So I pay roughly, I think it's a little bit over $200 every week for 18 meals. It comes out to $11.60 per meal. Now, Gio, like, I think yours are a little bit more because you don't order as many meals, right?
No, I get 10 meals for the week. And then I have, it's about $130. So I spend $130. So
you're paying like $13 a meal, like almost $2 more than me.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. But like, if we're thinking about this, like we're obviously going down the route of time optimization or also known as laziness, and maybe trying to be a little bit healthier, like assuming we're not the best cooks, right? Like, so there's like the ability to cook yourself something that is healthy. Private chefs aren't actually that bad. Like I looked up here in the Seattle area, there's a lot of ways to kind of like hire different chefs. So a lot of them will come in at the beginning of the week. They'll cook everything. Then there's the options of like, how many meals do you want? Are they going to do the shopping for you, the groceries basically for you or not? If not, then like what's the process and protocol of like, what are you going to buy? What are the proteins, things like that. So then they can conceptualize what they're going to cook. One of the reasons why I didn't do it is just because my kitchen's not very big and I wouldn't want someone in there cooking up a storm because I don't feel like I would be giving them the tools to succeed. But from a pricing standpoint, it's almost not that far off from what we're doing today.
So chiming in on that, like when I was considering on doing it, because I thought it was absurd, but just like 130 just for a week. And I was thinking about it. Okay, I spend like $75 on groceries, then spend, I don't want to cook because I'm so tired. I'm gonna get food instead, and then spending about, in the Bay Area prices, 15 plus on getting something unhealthy. I don't know what I'm really putting in my body in the sense of just ingredients wise, just processed food. And with the initial groceries, if I do this, it's gonna just go to waste and I have to toss food out. So now I'm wasting more money and I'm just getting unhealthier food and spending more money. So it didn't make sense for me. So as of right now, I'm agreeing with this just from my personal experience, because as of right now, I can go home after a long day, at least have a decent meal that hits at least carbs, veggies, and like protein. Microwave it up, shower all in 30 minutes, and I still have the rest of my night to work either on this or any side projects, or just have time to myself for 30 minutes instead of cooking for like an hour and a half, then eating and then doing the dishes, which could be 3 hours or 2 hours. It just, now I have to get ready for the next day at that point.
Yeah, I think I think growing up, we saw private chefs and we're like, oh my God, we're never going to be able to afford that. And maybe there's just a lot more transparency in the market now around how much it actually costs. But if we actually sat down and wrote how much we spend on food, it's not that far out of reach.
But no, I love the guy's breakdown on like time. So it's everything's possible. It's like everything's in reach, but you have to just really analyze it. It just sitting down and just really critically thinking. And this, what I love about it is the breakdown, especially about time, like how I just did a small snippet. But yeah, those hour and a half extra was turned into something really productive that I used. And for them, it's a 17 hours of crap time turned to quality time. That's insane. Like, you could just be spending out with significant other, you could spending out with your kids, or even just having a sit down conversation with your kids as the meals are being prepped for that day. And that's even better than just cooking and then putting it down and then having the conversation. You just have 30 extra minutes talking to your family.
Yeah, I think it kind of comes back a little bit just to outsourcing different parts of your life. There are upsides to it. It also comes down to the ability to afford to outsource those things, right? Because if we're just sticking on food, I mean, simplifying it, let's talk about coffee. You can get Folgers for 10 cents a cup, right? Or you could go out to Starbucks and get like a $7 cup of coffee, right? That's a pretty big range.
Mm-hmm.
And then you kind of have like your Keurig and Nespressos, kind of like, situated somewhere between on that scale. From a food standpoint, you have, I cook, let's say you're cooking something healthy too, right? You're not just getting top ramen, which has zero nutrition, and you're throwing some soy sauce on there for some sodium. And then let's talk about like a protein, vegetable, like actual meal. I mean, back when we were doing hardcore meal prepping, we were getting it down to $3 a meal, which is like being super, super thrifty, right? But like, let's say the bar starts at $3 a meal. Eating out, let's say $15 a meal. And then if you're like an individual that probably might use an Uber Eats or what's the other one? DoorDash a little bit.
Yeah.
That could easily become $20 a meal, right? So like your range is like 3 to 20. This kind of is like plopped right in the middle, where you're like meal preps and or maybe even private chefs falls actually in the middle of there. So like it's in the same way that someone optimizes their time with a Nespresso coffee, this is optimizing your time for the rest of the meals beyond your caffeine addiction. Yeah. So JL, let me know when you find a good chef, and I'll be over for dinner.
We'll see. I have a little studio apartment, so I think I might fall in the same boat as you. I don't have the proper room.
I'm still waiting for my invite.
We'll wait for mine as well. Get yours first.
All right, let's hit that last topic that you had.